Today it is Thriving Thursday. We are happy that you're here. We've got a few more people just joining us. Welcome. Today we have a great opportunity, as we do most Thursdays, to learn from none other than Christian Sadler. And this is a guy that is just killing it out there, and the reason is because he has applied the things that he's been learning. He has practiced it. He has developed his personal skills of public speaking, of preparedness, of being prompt, of organizing events, and all of this adds together. And the thing is it's not just with Renatus. He is a public speaker in other events. He is a leader in other realms. He is a public speaker all across the country, and he has spoken with some of the best, and we are just so privileged to have him with us today. Christian, how are you doing?
I am great, Ron. How are you?
Fantastic. Glad to hear from you today.
Well, I am glad to be here and grateful to be on here with you. And especially, Ron, I just want to send a shout out to you that I'm honored to serve by your side. One thing that I've seen with you is just absolute consistency and commitment to the cause, right? You've taken on this role as the coordinator for these calls, and man, I have not seen anybody do it better. So thank you for everything that you do with these calls and everything that you do for this whole community. I mean, there's one thing that I know for sure. If I see Ron, I'm going to see a big fat smile on his face, and I'm going to see people around him smiling, because his energy is infectious. So thank you, Ron. And let's jump into things. Thank you, Michael, for the compliment there. I do want to share that this is going to be a little bit of a repeat from the Impact that I just hosted as well, because I think that this information is so relevant right now. It's fresh on my mind, but it's also something that I want to make sure people understand. And so if you were on the Impact, there's going to be some repeat here, but I will make sure to see if I can open it up for questions and give you guys the opportunity to ask any questions that you might have. And so what I'm speaking on is the 4 levels of learning. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and we'll start there. And I'm actually going to need you, Ron, to make me a host. Thank you so much.
That's what you get for telling everyone how competent I've been.
Yeah, this is great. All right, let me switch over to the whiteboard. And again, if you were on the Impact, it's going to be a little bit of a repeat. But then again, repetition is the mother of all learning. So don't think that just because it's going to be somewhat of a repeat of what you've heard, that's a reason to go away. I would say stick around. Let me just get this moved here, get myself adjusted so that I can go through here. So we talked about the 4 levels of learning, and let's kind of dive into those real quick. So the first level is unconscious incompetence. Unconscious incompetence. So what this is it means you don't even know what you don't know. This is how we start life, right? This is how we start anything for that matter. And so the most common example that most people use for unconscious incompetence and so on and so forth is driving a car. The first time you have the opportunity, to get in a car, how awkward was it? Now, some of you are like, oh, I was taught when I was so young that I never had that awkward phase. I would probably guess that you did, and maybe you don't remember it. Maybe you were taught a lot of things before you even got in the car. I remember for me, I decided I was going to drive a car, and my sister gave me the opportunity to drive literally 2 houses. So all I had to do was go forward. And I get in the car, first time, right? I had seen somebody shifted into drive before, so I knew that part, so I shifted into drive. And then I'm realizing there's 2 pedals here. Now you can imagine if I had 3 pedals, that would have really been, tough for me. But in the beginning, I learned with an automatic, and I'm driving with both feet. So right hand on the gas, or right foot on the gas, left foot on the brakes. And yeah, it was one of the most awkward things you could see. I mean, it was go, stop, 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 go, stop, go, stop, right? And it looked really strange, I'm sure. I think I peeled out a little bit. I think I, shook things up, and I was unconsciously incompetent. I didn't know what I didn't know. And so then I got to the point where I had a conscious incompetence. So I started asking questions, right? Now I knew there were things I didn't know. And so I started asking questions. And, my sister, she gave me some direction. She shared with me, you only use 1 foot. So you use one of those pedals at a time, right? And so I became consciously incompetent. I knew I didn't know what I was doing. And so therefore I needed to learn. So as I started to learn, I became consciously competent. So in other words, I could drive, I could, get from one place to another, but I really had to think about it. And this is where, you think about, some people still have this now where they can't back into a space, right? When the first time that I decided I was going to, let's just call it borrow. I was going to borrow my mom's car, way too young to drive. And I decided I was going to go drive around the block in my mom's car, right? I could really barely see, out the windows. I wasn't a very big kid when I was younger. And I'm backing up. But by this time, I had, I understood a little bit about what I was doing, but I really had to think about it. So I decided I was going to back out of the driveway. Well, I didn't really understand the backing and the turning, and it was still a little awkward for me. So what did I do? I ran over my fence. Oh man, I felt stupid. So I pulled forward and I, fixed the fence the best that I could. And then I cranked the wheel and I backed out in, probably one of the most awkward positions. And then I still decided to go drive around the block. I was kind of a bad kid. I didn't wreck, luckily. I drove around the block a couple of times, and then I put the car back, and, no harm, no foul. But over time, I became unconsciously competent. Now, unconscious competence, let's do that. I'm switching between the different things, so let's go. Just to keep this formatted properly. All right, so unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and then unconscious competence. Now you're probably wondering, what does that mean? Unconscious competence is where you don't even realize how much you know. You don't even have to think about what you're doing. So most of us by now, when it comes to driving a car, we're at that point, right? We can hop in the car, we can turn on the radio, we can take a phone call. Please don't use your hands, right? I'm talking about if you got a hands-free system. We could be eating a cheeseburger. We could be doing all these things, and we can drive from one place to another and not even remember the drive because we were just doing it naturally. It was just part of our process. So that is the 4 levels of learning. And one thing that was brought to my attention very, very clearly over this last week was the skill sets that we are developing here in Renatus that we don't even realize because we think we're just taking the daily actions, right? We think we're just showing up on a weekly basis. We think we're just making phone calls. We think that we're just having, follow-up conversations and explaining to people velocity banking or whatever it is. And the truth is, we're actually gaining massive amounts of experience. And we're getting to the point where we are unconsciously competent in so many areas. And so for me, where this showed up for me was, I think I shared on a previous webinar that I decided I was going to start speaking on other stages. So speaking on other people's stages and utilizing that as a platform to enroll people into Renatus. Well, I had the biggest outside speaking opportunity that I've had thus far. I'm pretty new into it, but still, it was a big deal for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people. So some of the people that I shared the stage with over this last week was Les Brown. He was voted as the #1 motivational speaker in the world multiple times. I shared the stage with the owner of Priceline. I shared the stage with Colin Farrell, Wesley Snipes. I could continue on and on. And so it was a big opportunity for me. But here's the thing. I, of my own admittance, was pretty unprepared and not as proactive as I definitely could have been. I'm a little bit of a go with the flow type of a guy. And so my understanding was that this event was Friday, Saturday, kind of like we do our events, right? Training on Friday, training on Saturday, and an awards gala banquet on Saturday night. Well, it turns out the training was Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Awards gala was Sunday night. So luckily, I decided that I was going to road trip out there. And I left so that I could be there a day early. And, we got in. We stayed about an hour outside of LA. And then the next day we woke up and decided that we're going to just kind of settle into the day. Now, I hadn't prepared my speech yet. I hadn't really designed it because my idea was to get there on Thursday, enjoy some time at the beach, relax in, and then in the evening, really dial in the fine points of my speech. Well, we're at the beach, and we went there straight from our hotel room. And as we're hanging out, we decided to go in the ocean, and it's kind of hard to get me close to water without me getting in. Like it's something about the water, especially the ocean or a lake, that it fuels me. So start by rolling up my pants, and I get my feet in, and then pretty soon my pants are wet, and I've got sand in my toes, and there I am just having a blast. And then, I'm hungry, and by this it's about 1:00 in the afternoon, and we decided we're going to go eat. Now, I was unconsciously incompetent about what parking on the beach was like, how, what it takes to find a parking spot on the beach. And I was getting frustrated. I was hangry, right? I was so hungry that I was frustrated by everything. And we finally see Duke's. And Duke's is a restaurant that I went to in Hawaii. So I was like, oh, how cool is this? I would love to go here as well. So solved the parking problem because I just went in and got valet. So I valet park, and they give me one of those little buzzers, and we're going in to wait and to eat. All of a sudden I get a text from my speaking coach, the one that got me this speaking opportunity. And she said, where are you? You're supposed to be on stage soon. And my heart dropped, and I'm thinking to myself, oh crap. So I call her up, and I'm like, I'm freaked out by your text. What does that mean? I thought the event didn't start till tomorrow. And she's like, no, you got to be, your spot is at 3:00. So it's 1:30 at this point. I'm supposed to be on at 3:00. I'm about an hour and 25 minutes away, an hour and a half away from the venue. The venue's in Burbank. I'm in Malibu. If anybody has, that geography of California down. So luckily, my girlfriend, she knows the area really well. She's spent a lot of time there. It's like a second home to her. So she kind of knows the ways to avoid traffic. And so she says, I'll drive, you get dressed. So I'm changing my pants as we're driving, and she ditches through this canyon, and it's a switchback canyon, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So I'm looking for clothes, and I'm doing this thing, and I actually get motion sickness. And so I don't ride passenger very often. So now by the end of this canyon, I'm feeling sick, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. We need a Chinese fire drill. And so she gets to a stoplight, we Chinese fire drill. I hop in the driver's side, but I'm not as familiar, right? And so she's trying to give me direction as we're going. I get off on the wrong exit. I took 2 additional wrong turns after that. Somehow, though, through all of it, we get there just in time. I'm like on the phone with Allison, my speaking coach. And we pull up, and she says, go in the main doors. I'm going to take you straight back. Well, it's at a hotel. So I go in the hotel, and I don't see her. And I ask the front desk, where is, the city summit being held? And they said, oh, that's the convention center. You got to go through these 2 buildings, and you'll run right into it. So I'm walking through these 2 buildings. I'm, more jogging and running, because I got out of the truck when I first got to the hotel, and I didn't even have my shoes and socks on or a jacket on. I just sat down, threw those on, and then, here we are. They direct me through, and I see Allison. She introduced me to a bunch of people and says, okay, we need to get you back there. And everybody's saying, thank you, Mr. Sadler, for being here. We're so glad you made it. And they're clearing people out of the way. I hadn't even seen the venue yet. I hadn't seen the crowd. I didn't really know what I was dealing with. And so they rushed me back, and they mic me up. They throw a mic on, and they go, and then they turn to me and they say, you're going on in 90 seconds. So I had 90 seconds to compose myself. And I did. And by this time, through the drive and through the sickness and through the getting dressed, I had been mapping out how I was going to deliver this information. Now, how do I know the information? Well, it's the same information that we share every single Thursday night. So if you don't have unconscious competence in sharing the message of Renatus and financial literacy and real estate investing and taxes and banking and business and real estate and education, if you're not to that point yet, I would suggest sitting in the room every Thursday night taking notes, or whatever night your main presentation is. Because I had that 90 seconds, I got up on stage, and I just flat delivered. I mean, I had all kinds of people afterwards coming up to me and telling me how great I did. And, nobody even knew. I didn't even address the fact that I had rushed there. I didn't even address the fact that I, had to change my clothes in the car. I just went up there and said the information. And I used the same method that I've been teaching you guys of being able to break this information down into segments and being able to share it, whether it's 1 minute, whether it's 5 minutes per topic, just being able to deliver that information. So I had 15 minutes on stage. I delivered. Afterwards, I'm getting all these compliments, and there was one that stuck out to me. So I had a guy, and he approached me and he said, hey, I hate not being able to take notes. I was trying to take notes on my phone because your information really stuck out to me. Is there any way you could help me update these? And so sure enough, he asked some questions. I give him the information. He thanks me. He says, I got to tell you, I am a speaker snob. I've seen the best in the world. And that was one of the top speeches that I've seen. You did great. It was very relevant. I think that freedom in America is being redefined. Because what I did, guys, just to let you in, is I took the 5 pillars and I just turned them into the 5 keys to freedom. So it's the same information. I just worded it a little bit different because I knew it was more of an entrepreneurial-based crowd and people that already were successful. So the 5 keys to freedom. And he said, freedom's being redefined in America, and I really think that your message, helped explain that. And I said, oh, that's great. I appreciate the compliment. Tell me about, what you're doing here. Are you speaking as well? He said, oh, no, I'm just here. My dad's actually getting an award. And I said, oh, that's great. Who's your dad? And he said, my dad is Les Brown. Are you familiar with him? Now, I was. Les Brown is one of I would say, one of my top speaking mentors, if you'll call it, from a outside perspective. Like, I have watched his speeches so many times and been motivated by his words. And so that was a big deal for me. And so at that point, I felt confident that I did indeed deliver. And the truth is, it's because I've shared this information so many times. So folks, when you're making your phone calls, when you're doing your one-on-ones, when you are, going through your follow-ups, when you're just simply running this business, if you get the opportunity to speak, and share on stage, holy cow, the amount of experience that you're gaining is huge. And so, take whatever skill set you're looking to learn and realize that you might be unconsciously incompetent right now, but with a choice to become consciously incompetent and realize you don't know it all and learn more to become to where you can, do it effectively, but you need to think about it. Pretty soon it'll get to the point where it is second nature. And that's where you want to be in your real estate business. That's where you want to be in, speaking. That's where you want to be in sales, because folks, sales is life. If you want to convince yourself to get out of bed and do the things that you need to do, you've got to learn sales skills. If you want to convince your kids to get out of bed and do the things they need to do, you got to learn sales skills. And the list goes on and on and on. Sales is not about manipulation. And if anything, it's positive manipulation, right? Sales is about getting people out of their own way to do what's best for them. If you're selling and you're convincing people to do anything that's not best for them, I don't consider that selling. I consider that manipulating. So that's my message. I wanted to make sure that I left some time open for questions, because I took up all the impact with this story, and I know there's some people that followed over from that webinar to here. So any questions at all? I'm going to jump over to the chat line and find out. Let's see. So there's something that I can see there from Chuck, but it just looks like question marks. So I'm not seeing that. Do we have any questions about what I'm sharing? Well, are you guys still hearing me? Let's do that. Oh, okay. Melissa, thank you. All right. Well, I'll give about 30 more seconds. Any more questions? Do you have any other mentors that you recommend watching? Jeff, absolutely. So I've watched a lot of the big names. So Anthony Robbins is somebody, if you watch the way that he speaks, and I would say not only going to his new stuff, but go backwards for, some of the stuff when he was getting into and becoming who he is today. Melissa, yeah. So all I did was take the 5 pillars and I redefined them. So let me spell that out for you guys again, for those of you who might not know. Let me just clear this. All right. So basically, and this could be anything. So this could be the 3 steps. Uh-oh, where'd my whiteboard go? This could be the 3 steps to success. This could be the 5 pillars of wealth. For me, I actually did, and let me clear this. I just took the 5 pillars and I called them the 5 keys to freedom. So this was the title of my speech. Now, I came up with that literally in the hour and a half from the time that I realized I was going on stage to the time that I was on stage. And so what did I share? Well, I shared about education and why specialized knowledge is needed in today's society. If you want to succeed in anything, traditional education is probably not going to get you there. And then I shared about business and why being in business for yourself offers so many additional freedoms. I talked about taxes and how by being a business owner, you open yourself up to a bunch of, to hundreds of additional tax deductions. And I talked about, maximizing the taxes. And then I talked about banking. And then I talked about real estate and why real estate is the foundation to wealth. So all I did was share a few minutes on each of these 5 things. Literally, it was combined an average of roughly 3 minutes per topic in order to hit a 15-minute speech. What are some of the ways and methods for repetition? A lot of it is just going over and over and over again. So here's something that might help. One of the things that I've done lately, for example, with the Audible, when I'm reading Audible, I go through at least about a book a week on Audible. And usually that same book I'm going through twice in the same week. And the way that I do it is I actually listen at 2.6 times the speed, right? So two and a half times the normal speed. And then I go back and I listen to it again at about 1.8 because I can't go back to normal speed. When you train your brain to listen at 2.6 on Audible, it's hard to listen at normal speed. And so one of the ways that I, really gather the information from these books is I listen at like 2.65. And this varies a little bit based on, the one that's actually speaking, because some people are easier to comprehend and you can listen faster, and some are harder and you got to listen slower. But anyway, so I'll go through it at 2.6 and then I'll slow it down. I'll slow it down to like 1.8, sometimes 1.5. And I know that for me, the first time I go through an audiobook, especially if it's brand new to me, I don't capture everything. I get distracted. I go, my brain goes off on tangents. Sometimes it's like just subconsciously going into my mind. And then when I go through it again, I catch a lot of additional because I already have the big picture. And so you guys can do the same thing with your Renatus education, right? Or the 10-step training, right? Get on there and listen to it at 2 times the speed if you can, right? Download the audios, listen to the audios. If you can watch it visually and then you can listen to it audibly and then you can watch it again and write down notes, that's a way that you could go through the information and repeat it. If you're talking about, the Thursday night presentation or your 5 Pillars event, whichever day it is, go there and listen. Record it if you need to, right? Bring a little audio recorder and listen to it again when you're driving home, right? Take down notes. When you're watching the presenter, listen to how they say what they say. Listen to, when they pause, and think about the psychology behind it. And that's going to help you in designing your own speech. Jeff, I never got a voice coach. I never have had that. I guess I was lucky enough, I was blessed enough to just have a voice that projects. And so, I didn't really have too much of an issue there as far as voice coach. Would you recommend getting one or someone similar? Honestly, for me, Jeff, starting out in the beginning, I just went out there and did it. So here's my experience with sharing, a presentation. So I'm about a year into my, career with this education. And I'd been building for events. We actually had a lunchtime presentation at the office of my mentor. And because I had quit my job at this point, I decided, I was always building for these lunchtime events, and I had guests coming. And I got a call from the presenter about 15 minutes before it was supposed to start. And he said, I'm stuck in traffic. There's no way I'm going to make it in time. You're going to have to run without me. And so luckily, I had been in the presentation so many times, over and over and over, that I knew some of the key points. And there was actually one other guy there that was with me as well. His name was Brandon. Me and Brandon were both very new. We were green, like we had never presented in our life. And so we just said, okay, what are the key points that we want to share? Why real estate, ideal, those types of things, break down a subject to transaction. And I said, okay, you share this, I'll share this, you share this, and I'll share that. Great. We had 4 points. We went and we did it. Well, we actually got some enrollments out of it. In fact, the presenter that didn't make it had a guest in the room that bought. And so obviously he's thinking, well, geez, maybe I don't even have to be there. He didn't just quit on us or anything, but they started to push me to do more presentations. So now they're having me do intros. They're having me MC. They're having me do all these things. And, I just started learning those skills. And I started speaking, and then I started sharing full presentations. And of course, the more success I had running the business, the more they wanted me in front of the room sharing about the business. And so that was my journey. Now, if you're not, and especially at this point, we have a lot of very skilled presenters in Renatus, and it's you're not necessarily going to get thrown in front of the stage, right off the bat. So what you might want to do is go to some of the speaking organizations out there. So Toastmasters International is one of them. In fact, Les Brown is a member of Toastmasters International. So you can go to Toastmasters. There's also the National Speakers Association. They have a lot of good trainings and whatnot. And those are some organizations that you could go to really develop your speaking skills. And for me, I've been to Toastmasters. I actually even signed up to become a member of Toastmasters, but I haven't really dedicated a ton of time there or with the National Speakers Association. Just simply, I haven't made it a priority. And I had so much experience already by the time I got there because of running this Renatus business and having the opportunities that I did. Michael, over and over in your mind helps. Oh yeah, definitely. So going over and visualizing and acting it out. That's one thing. So in a lot of the trainings that I've done, one thing that I'll do is I'll kind of map it out in my mind, and then I'll put a PowerPoint together. And by building out the PowerPoint, I'm thinking through in my mind, and I'm actually visualizing myself sharing about that slide as I'm building the slide. And then once I built the PowerPoint, I actually click through the PowerPoint as if I'm presenting. The interesting thing about it is you can click through it and imagine in your mind a lot faster than you can actually deliver it in person. Our mind works so much faster than our body, right? And so what I'll do is I'll actually go through as if I'm presenting it. And then usually what that does is that brings up some changes that I need to make because it's not going to flow, that well. And so I switch it up, and sometimes I'll reorder it and reorganize it. And then I'll jump back into it, and I'll go through it, and I'll present it again. One of the tips that I got was, in the beginning when I was wanting to learn these skills of presenting is one of my mentors said, set up an audience at home. And if you don't have any kids, then set up your stuffed animals or set up a few, empty chairs, set it up as if you're presenting to somebody. And he said, if you are blessed enough that you have kids, if you can make this information simple enough that a 7-year-old can understand it, then you are now a confident or a skilled presenter. And so I didn't have the kids, and so I just kind of went through it, and then I had my opportunity to speak when I could. And so visualization, going through it, practicing, listening to it, hearing other people, go through it over and over again, and that repetition will build those skills. Any other questions you guys have? I got to jump off here and start the PIT team webinar, but I just want to make sure, is there any other additional questions or comments based on what we're sharing? All right, I appreciate you guys being on here, and especially those of you who are on both the impact and here. I appreciate you being on for the repetition. If there's anything that I can do to help any of you guys, feel free to reach out to me. As long as you spell my name right, Christian with an I-O-N, I'm really easy to find. See you soon.